Many gamers are well aware of the popular video game series Luigi's Mansion, as the first game was a premier launch title for the Nintendo GameCube. For those unaware, Luigi's Mansion pits the titular Luigi in a spooky mansion where he must brave its dark but not uninhabited hallways on a quest for keys, solving puzzles, and capturing ghosts who have abducted his brother, Mario. This story is not about a haunted copy of Luigi's Mansion. My copy is very much normal, and I will continue to play it for decades yet. But the real haunt comes from the real world. The ghost bosses Luigi encounters throughout the game are actually the creations of a real ghost named Vincent van Gogh, who painted the ghost on canvas and brought them to life. This is obviously textbook Nintendo CYA by adding a family/marketing friendly coat of paint to the setting of the Haunted Mansion. Very much how Nintendo walked back the lore of Redeads in Ocarina of Time being zombies of real people. But this story is about the actual game director Hideki Kono. Mr. Kono, a very talented man, received the inspirations for the ghost bosses and their backstory from real-life true crime and or missing person cases, even if he refuses to acknowledge these muses for his game. How did I come across this information, you ask? Simple. I used to work for Nintendo of America back in 2001 and met Mr. Kono for a giveaway sweepstakes in Bakersfield, California for the launch of the GameCube. After the event was over, the entire staff were treated to a private buffet. Unfortunately, Shigeru Miyamoto did not attend, but I did, and so did Mr. Kono. It was at this private buffet that Mr. Kono became intoxicated and began to regale me with his love of true crime and police dramas. At first, it was simply like talking to your boss in real life. "Wow, I never knew that," or "Whoa, that's crazy, tell me more," and the classic, "Sheesh, that's grim." Years later, I followed up on his muses and have finally linked all the ghosts and their stories. Note, obviously these real-life people never knew each other. Please do not take this as license to harass the surviving family members. This is a work made for the love of Nintendo and Super Mario Bros. Continue responsibly. Otherwise, I shall introduce these ghosts in order they appear in-game. Neville, the bookish father. Even though his appearance and mustache are based on the real-life Neville Chamberlain from the UK, Neville the Ghost is actually based on an old Scottish miser from the 1790s named Benedict Bolingbroke. Benedict lived in what is now Newcastle, and he was psychotically obsessed with saving money. Legend claims he single-handedly ran his estate as he refused to hire servants. One day in his study, his oak desk broke under the weight of all the gold and silver he stored in it, as he did not trust banks, and accidentally pinned himself to the floor. By then he was too weak to free himself, and unfortunately died of thirst 5 days later. He was only discovered after a local sheriff came to conduct a welfare check. Fun fact, this folk legend would eventually inspire Ebenezer Scrooge. In-game players can discover loads of money in Neville's desk if they rattle it with the Poltergust 3000. Lydia, the mere-gazing mother. Lydia's inspiration comes from a murder back in 1988 of Olivia Strong from Australia. She was on a cruise from Sydney to Hong Kong where the ship crew found her tragically murdered in her own cabin bathroom. Crime scene investigators from the Australian Coast Guard deduced that Olivia had been killed when someone attacked her in her bathroom by shoving her into the mirror. They reasoned a missing shard of glass was used to later stab her to death. Unfortunately, this was the 80s, and security cameras were not mandatory on Australian cruise ships. Her killer, or killers, were never found. News of this tragic unsolved murder became a big topic of debate as the ship itself prematurely docked in Tokyo before returning back whence it came. Chauncey, the spoiled baby. Chauncey is thankfully not based on an actual deceased infant. Kono elaborated how Chauncey was based on SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, deaths, and he mentioned how his bosses almost made the team scrap Chauncey altogether for his dark connotations. The Floating Rolindas, the dancing couple. The Floating Rolindas were based off the professional dancer couple Romeo and Linda Walton. They were a miniature sensation in the 1930s of Great Depression Colorado, where swing was beginning to take off. One night at the Overlook Hotel, Linda's pearl necklace snapped and her husband Romeo slipped on one of them and accidentally tumbled out of a window, falling 10 floors to his death. In the horror and commotion of what happened, Linda threw herself likewise to her death, like her husband. This is why the dancing room in Luigi's mansion has extra windows all around, despite being an interior room. In her original concept art, the female dancer was supposed to have a pearl necklace, but it never rendered correctly. Instead, Kono made droppable pearls, a collectible item players could obtain from every ghost. Shivers, the Wandering Butler. Shivers the Butler is based on the case of Ernest Shivington, a butler from London. In 1897, Ernest was killed when he returned from vacation in Cambridge. His master had installed new gas heating into his mansion, but did not tell Ernest in time. Ernest was killed when he lit a pipe to smoke and burned to death along with the entire manor. It is because of this tragic death the UK began regulation to display pressurized gas equipment. Next time you see a labeled gas line, thank Ernest for his sacrifice. In Luigi's Mansion, this is why they made Shivers cartoonishly afraid of fire. Kind of crass in my opinion. Melody Pianissima, the beautiful pianist. Melody is based off 2 elements actually. She is first based off the real-life Forever 27 Club, which is an informal cultural phenomenon where musicians sadly lose their life to drugs, alcohol, or other high-risk lifestyles. We know this because her age is specifically 26 in-game. The woman she is based off is a musician named Courtney Plains. I could not find her Italian birth name. She was a pianist that was born in the heady days of post-World War I Italy and orphaned shortly thereafter. Naturally, her skills with a piano and lack of parents unfortunately saw her into the nasty bramble of drugs and facilitated alcoholism. Eventually, the rise of Mussolini saw Courtney immigrate to the United States. She would continue her life of piano and substance abuse until her death in 1947. Her cause of death is still debated. Signs point to an overdose, possibly intentionally, but the fact she owed several prominent Italian mobsters a lot of money for her morphine of choice. Kono and his bosses took pity on Miss Plains and reimagined her as a happy ghost pianist that loves music and video games. I think it's kind of beautiful as a memorial. Mr. Luggs, the glutton. Mr. Luggs, being an optional boss, has an admittedly tiny and mundane backstory. Kono explained Mr. Luggs was based off Japanese folklore about a man who ate so much that his stomach exploded. Today we know that this is technically called a thoracic hemorrhage, where the stomach ruptures. Lug's name is a play on the word lug, meaning to carry or drag with great effort. Spooky, the hungry guard dog. Spooky the dog is based off the literal ocean of violent, fatal pit bull attacks you see on the news and online. It is implied he mauled his owner, the skeleton boy, to death. Even in death, his lust for blood and gore is unsatiable, and he will attack Luigi without hesitation. But hey, what if I showed you a cute pit bull with a flower crown, right? Right? Bogmire, the cemetery ghost. Bogmire has one of the creepiest origins of all. He is not a ghost. He never lived. Van Gogh never painted him. Bogmire is an actual demon from hell, invited into the home by Uncle Grimly. But he overpowered him, and now his long demonic shadow infests the mansion and enslaves all spirits and those who perish in the home. His role in the original concept art heavily implied him to be a demon, or the Grim Reaper himself. Luigi must stop this demon at all cost. He is also the genesis of the Hell Valley Sky Trees in Super Mario Galaxy. Biff Atlas, the bodybuilder. Biff's name is inspired by the real-life bodybuilder Charles Atlas, who popularized the stereotype of the beach bully. The fight with Luigi, however, is based on the tale of Leroy Metier, another bodybuilder from North Carolina who tragically perished at a gym in 1987. When another guy, Kyle Sheridan, struck a punching bag into Leroy's back, causing him to drop the weights he was lifting to come down on his cranium, killing him instantly. After 2 years of legal battles, Sheridan was cleared of his wrongful death charge. The story of Kyle Sheridan became quite popular in Japan, not because of the manslaughter charge, but rather how he punched a punching bag with enough force to move it. This craze would go on to serve as the artistic inspiration for Goku, One Punch Man, and Biff Atlas. Nana, the scarf-knitting granny. Nana, in-game, is mercifully not inspired by any tragedies. She was simply inspired by the classic cartoon depictions of all grandmothers. Miss Petunia, the bathing beauty. Initially, one would see this boss as a harmless joke due to her silhouette in the shower. Her in-game appearance is inspired by Miss Piggy from The Muppets, but the real-life inspiration came from American model Heather Cook. In 1990, Heather Cook drowned in an ice bath after her dietary pills caused her to have a debilitating stroke, leaving her unable to do anything else but sink into her bathtub. Initially, her boyfriend was suspected of killing her, but toxicology reports discovered her acute brain stroke. If you're dieting, don't use drugs. Diet, exercise, in moderation. You will thank yourself. Slim Bankshot, the lonely pool shark. Mr. Kono confided in me that initially, Slim Bankshot was the technical owner of the mansion when he was alive. This is referenced by the framed pictures of him throughout the mansion and the statue of him in the garden. In lore, he made a deal with the devil, Bogmire, tithing his immortal soul for mastery of billiards. Bogmire accepted, and Slim became an overnight sensation on the pool scene. His fame and money allowed him to buy the mansion. But with all deals with devils, the devil lied. Slim's life as a famous pool shark was cut short after an opponent at billiards accidentally sent an 8-ball flying, which cracked Slim in his forehead, fracturing his cranium. He died of a brain bleed not long later. In death, Slim now spends his days and nights in the home he owned, but now as a ghost. He is enslaved to Bogmire and King Boo for all eternity. This is why in the GameCube version he can be skipped, making his hell on earth absolute. Henry and Orville, the twin brothers. Henry and Orville are obviously named after Henry Ford and Orville Wright, since one uses a car and the other a plane in their boss fight. But in real life, the twins are based on the semi-apocryphal tale of two kids in West Virginia in the 1930s, Jonah and Zachary Webb. They were playing hide and seek with each other and their friends when they got the idea to hide in an old-timey trunk in the attic since everyone was playing indoors. The Webb brothers climbed inside the trunk, and to their horror, the trunk locked from the outside. Nobody ever found them or heard their pleas for help. In West Virginia, their missing persons case went unsolved for a little over 40 years, until 1972, when a moving company was emptying the old house when they opened the chest on a whim and received the shock of their lives when they discovered two child corpses, virtually mummified. Dental records confirmed the bodies were the Webb brothers. Madame Clairvoyant, the freaky fortune teller. Back when Luigi's Mansion had more of a story, and Bogmire was the game's main antagonist, Madame Clairvoyant would have been revealed to be a sorceress hired by Neville to enter their home and help rid the mansion of Bogmire and his malevolence. But this only angered Bogmire, who turned her into a ghost. Later in the game, players could find Clairvoyant's physical body in the cold storage in the basement. After completing the game, Clairvoyant would get her voluptuous body back, and the game would end with her giving Luigi a kiss. For obvious reasons, Nintendo shut down this avenue of Clairvoyant's character, and they changed her to the item side quest we all know. Uncle Grimly, Hermit of the Darkness. Uncle Grimly was conceived to be a reoccurring antagonist and sidekick to Bogmire. He was implied to be a witch who did Bogmire's bidding in exchange for supernatural powers. In the beta version of the game, he would randomly visit rooms Luigi had cleared and disable the lights again, meaning Luigi would have to clear that same room again. He was also supposed to be defeated by Luigi on the balcony where you fight Boolossus. But instead of vacuuming him into the Poltergust 3000, Grimly would be struck by lightning and destroyed completely, but also sending the mansion into a total blackout that would last the rest of the game. Playtesters found Grimly too disturbing, and his power to re-darken rooms took too much memory on the disc, so he was simply turned into an old man that liked the darkness. Sue P., the dozing girl. Sue P. was a small nod to The Exorcist, as she was initially supposed to spin her head and vomit at Luigi. For obvious reasons, Nintendo said fuck no, and Sue P. was so pitifully trimmed down, it's a miracle she did not get scrapped altogether. Jarvis, the jar collector. Jarvis was initially going to be a good ghost, as a matter of fact. He was supposed to give Luigi a magic jar that let him carry different tools and puzzle items around. He would also give Luigi advice when Grimly was nearby. But again, disk memory issues nipped this in the bud, sadly. Sir Weston, The Chilly Climber. Sir Weston was based upon the real-life Ernest Shackleton, the first Englishman to land in Antarctica. His appearance was initially based off these super creepy, prehistoric Greenland mummies, but it was changed to avoid offending American activist groups. But don't look at those Greenland mummies, because they are legit creepy. The Clockwork Soldiers. The Toy Platoon. The Clockwork Soldiers, by far, have the most deranged inspiration. In the 1890s, Munich, Germany, a machinist named Adolf Reifler. He was a machinist by trade, but also made toys. His toys were highly prized, but sadly, virtually zero survived World War II and the Soviet occupation. Although 2 pieces have turned up in private collections, they have not yet been convinced to donate them to museums. Reifler's crowning achievement were the Clockwork Soldiers, but his genius came with madness, and he was arrested when it came to light he had murdered his adulterous wife and her lover and hid their bodies in the Clockwork Soldiers. This grisly tale inspired German films of the 1920s, like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in 1920 and The Golem in 1915. Adolf Reifler was lobotomized in 1899 and died in 1902 of respiratory failure. His body's location was never disclosed. With that, I can finally get this off my chest and put it out there at long last. Luigi's Mansion has a history we can't even imagine. Don't even try taking this to Mr. Kono himself. Nintendo has got ironclad NDAs with his name on them. But me? I'm just a guy on the internet.